Good morning or afternoon, everyone, depending on what part of the state or time zone that you're in. Appreciate you attending our November CPSI Lunch and Learn. Today, it's going to be a roundtable. So we have got three great speakers. Don Busick, from a contracted consultant from TPMA. That's Thomas P. Miller and Associates, if you care about what that acronym means. She's going to be talking about data. Just arriving right now is Steve Gooden from the Indiana National Guard, and he's going to be talking about resources, partnerships, and all the great things that they're doing. Career coaching. So I'd like to welcome everybody. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Again, please put your microphones on mute. And that way it will allow you to unmute yourself and ask questions for the speakers later on. And we are recording this session, so it will be available like all the previous sessions that we have done on the CPSI site. Our presenters have some information that they put in the chat. And if we have any slide presentations or anything, we will also add that to the CPSI site. So it'll be available for you or your colleagues to pull up later on. So with that said, I am going to turn it over to Dawn, and she's going to start us off talking about data.
Well, it's good morning for me because I'm calling in from beautiful Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri. Hello, good morning. I'm Dawn Busick. Thomas P. Miller Associates is a nationwide consulting firm. Our sandbox is higher education, economic development, workforce development, strategic planning for state, local, and federal governments. So a little bit about data and why it's important. The old saying that without data, you're just an opinion. So it's critical that you understand and use and support data, and also hone up on your data science skills and how to gather that. So today, with this initiative, I want to share with you 3 different types of veteran resource data sources that you can access for free. Now, I know many of you with your institutions, you already have access to your respective report through your research director's office in regards to how you report your military student population and the demographics through the IPEDS initiative. Every state's required to do an annual IPEDS upload. However, IPEDS is a little bit dated. It's not as fresh as what some of these other sites. Another site that I won't be sharing today, but I do want to mention, and that's Burning Glass Institute. However, Burning Glass Institute is expensive, or it can be expensive, and it's an annual subscription. So many colleges do not. However, you may have access it through other research entities such as Thomas P. Miller Associates, or your state economic development agencies usually run a lot of Burning Glass reports. So the first one I want to share with you, and I did put a link in the chat, and I just noticed Ryan Russell said that they're not going to be able to open it. So Steve, what I will do is I will send this to you in a PDF document, and you can forward it out to everybody. But the first one, I'm going to share my screen and kind of just, you should be able to see this. The first one is USA Facts. So this is a data source that we utilize when we're looking at going into communities and we're doing community profiles, population demographics, when we develop strategic plans, community asset mapping, labor analysis, economic trends, but as well as education needs. In other words, it gives you a really nice breakdown of certain population demographics. In other words, students, 8th grade students, high school seniors that are going to graduate that potentially could be potential students enrolling into higher education. So I utilized this site not too long ago in another project that I'm working on in Indiana with the Commission of Higher Ed, and that is the Military Credit for Prior Learning Initiative. In so much that when I was working with CHE's research office, the IPEDS data from all the institutions within Indiana hadn't been uploaded yet. So I went out and used the USA Facts, and I looked at veterans in Indiana. And so this is a nice, easy site that you can also sign up for emails if you want to get, respective to your states. But it shares data like, for example, there's in 2022, there were 325,180 veterans living in Indiana, and that's a decrease from the last census data from 2012. So, but however, it will break them down, how many are Indiana state residents by ethnicity, veteran state of Indiana residents by period of service. And it looks like your largest veteran population are those that served in the Vietnam era with 114,000 plus in that area. In your World War II, you still have 2.4 thousand still residing in your state that served in World War II, and that's pretty cool. Other types of things that they can share is, their comparison to the civilian population in Indiana and to the United States. You can go out and search other states, which is really nice, and then click on that state and pull up more data. So when you're looking at your program and your initiatives within your college, especially in the military population, it's fun to go out and look at these sites and see exactly where they're residing. And probably more than likely, there might be a military hub or a base nearby within your institution's service region. But this is where we go and we collect and we find a lot of this. We talk about veterans poverty, 8.60. Compared to the non-veterans poverty level, which is 11.8. Unemployment rate for veterans in Indiana, veterans with bachelor's degrees in Indiana. And there's a whole host of them that come out. So this is really good data. You could utilize this data when you're putting together grant applications for your initiative or just any type of application or annual report. And I believe with this one, you can also go further down to county. So the next one I want to show you is Military State Policy Source. And this one is part of Military One Source. This is a U.S. Department of Defense website, and this one is very free. They have a lot of great, if you go down to data research and statistics, you'll be able to go into, I do know this one does have the county breakdown. And this is a really good source of fresh data. This one I think was last updated last fall, October of 2024. And I was hoping before this presentation that the most current information was updated, but it hasn't been yet. But it could be because Indiana, I believe they do pull some of this information from your iPad's data. But coming back up here, you can see that you have a little over 3,000 active duty service members, 1,400 active duty spouses, 3,100 active duty children, 21,000 National Guard reserves, and so on. Shane Peterson here is over the Great Lakes region for Indiana. Right there, see, Indiana's right there along with Illinois, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, and Wisconsin. But you can talk, gives you state policies and practices. So if you're looking at what other states are doing in similar programs that you're interested in or considering for your institution, this is a great resource to have. They talk about open enrollment flexibility. These are all current policies that are being introduced or currently in place or going to go in place for like 2025. And you just button down and you can see what states are doing final legislation and what states are doing where. It's also a great resource for all of these other topic specifics that they have. And then, of course, again, down here, I showed you data research and statistics. This is a great place to go to. Department of Defense does a lot of surveys constantly, every month. And so they're collecting information so they can also, so their information, their research and reports are fresh as well. So you can access those through here. You can go community demographics, and this one's broken down by demographic profiles for research reports and infographics. There are research partners that are conducting a lot of this research for them. And then, of course, reports that they've issued, special need program reports, military community advocacy reports, readiness reports. So there's just all kinds. And this, too, is another free website that is utilized for programs such as yours. And then the final one I do want to share is, go down. This is Education Connection. And so for in higher ed, not only just veterans, they have a whole host of other types of research data that you can have access to at your fingertips. And this is a free one, but they do have a veterans page, which is right here. And this is one that speaks to, this is one that I'm pretty sure that a lot of the recruiters will share to veterans that are returning that are seeking higher ed. This is a breakdown of the military-friendly colleges in Indiana. Now, it only denotes 11 of them. However, I'm sure many of you that if you're not listed on here could be listed if you reach out and make that connection. So 11 military-friendly colleges in Indiana as of 2024, and then it lists them. And a little bit of background about your institution's information. So this does have a little bit of it is competitive out there with our student population who are military affiliated because they are looking to see, who are the yellow ribbon colleges. And also when they come home, when they return home and they're seeking out to fulfill their degree, it's also a consideration of where do they want to reside? Do they want to go back to their home base where they were raised and started? Or do they want to go back to the base that they did their basic training in because they had a great experience there with that community and remembered there was a great higher education institution? So these are good to take a look at in Indiana, who's got pretty robust military veteran programs, but also they are approved yellow ribbon college programs. So if your college hasn't engaged in that yet, you might want to give that some consideration. However, I know many of you are considering and applying for the Collegiate Purple Star Initiative come January. But these are the 3 data source sites that I wanted to share, and that all Institute. And that is live, fresh data. And then the other one would be the Commission of Higher Ed Research Department, the IPEDS report, but your own research director at your respective institution, which some of you may be reporting to annually on your, for those of you that do keep data on your military students, they might have a full, robust report and be able to run a report maybe previous academic years back 5 years to see if you have trends. It would be interesting to run data reports around how many were enrolled during COVID and how many are enrolled today to see if there was a trend there. So that concludes my 10 minutes real quick of why data is important. For your programs, as well as for any research report that you're preparing, or maybe even a budgetary initiative that you're seeking for your veterans programs of services.
Don, that was a lot of great information. And just to share, one of the reasons that I wanted Don to present is because I actually used a lot of the sites that she just talked about, because I recently gave a presentation, and I kind of wanted to talk about the global military affiliated ecosystem. And it's like, what's going on across the nation? And then I was able to narrow down the information to say, this is what's occurring in Indiana. And so it helped with my presentation, but we've also used a lot of that same information in the CPSI field guide. And it's really good for you to be able to talk numbers when you're talking to the administration, because that's kind of the world they live in. And it's a powerful way to package, hey, here's what's going on by numbers, and then let me give you the personal stories that you guys all have connections with to fill in the blanks. But so that's why I wanted Dawn to really talk about what's out there to help drive your story. And so I'm going to open it up. Does anybody have any questions for Dawn? Feel free to unmute yourself, or if you feel more comfortable, you can drop a question in the chat. Well, Dawn, I do appreciate the valuable information. We will make sure that we put the information you provide on the CPSI site. And again, we are recording this, so if you missed some of the things that she said, feel free to come back and rewatch this.
Sure.
But
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dawn. We're going to turn it over to Mr. Gooden from the National Guard.
You hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. Hey, first of all, good afternoon, and thank you, Steve, for inviting me to participate today. I'm really glad to see several college representatives that we work with also joining us today. And I will start off. I am the Director of Education Services, and I have the privilege of managing the education and incentives teams for the Indiana Army National Guard. I have 19 team members who are very focused on providing top-notch customer service and really critical support to approximately 10,000 soldiers and 2,000 airmen. And for those that don't know, of the 54 states and territories, so we have Guam, we have a couple other territories, but we're ranked as the fifth largest territory or state. So we've got a lot of service members that we support. So today, although I'm primarily going to be focused on some of our basic education programs, I did want to at least point out the fact that we've got one of our incentive options is for someone that initially enlists, and that is called the Student Loan Repayment Program. Now, the service member can have up to $50,000 in qualifying loans paid back, provided those loans haven't gone into default. And the good news, if that person comes in with that option, it will not take away from any of the other education benefits our Guard members are entitled to. So tons and tons of education benefits. I would tell you, for many soldiers, they can be extremely confusing. And some of those that are on this call know that you answer a lot of questions and you try to help those service members when they come into your offices on campus. And a lot of times it can be overwhelming for you, and you reach out to us. And that's really, really important. The one thing I'll say before I go into some of those benefits, if you haven't already done so, I would strongly encourage that you reach out to us, and we'll be glad to set up either a face-to-face or a remote meeting, and we can go kind of a deep dive into the details of the benefits and answer a lot of questions you have. And I see Dr. Herbert. Kathy, you're on the call. That's excellent, because Kathy and I and my GI Bill manager just spent over 2 hours in her office yesterday up there at Ball State University. And boy, oh boy, I learned a lot, because there were some questions, some things that came up I didn't know anything about. And I believe that we answer a lot of her questions, and we just start kind of the start of our working relationships, since she's pretty new in the position. She is a huge advocate, super motivated, and she's going to really be taking that program to the next level. I love her ideas, what she plans on doing with the Collegiate Purple Star, credit for prior learning. And a lot of that actually got started based on a few years ago, when I uncovered that there was a big disparity among colleges across Indiana, both private and public, where that joint service transcript there was no consistency in how they were evaluating that transcript and providing credit for service members when they were enrolling and getting accepted in a school. We saw a variation from someone that might be a senior non-commissioned officer, been in the National Guard for maybe 18 years. In one school, they might have been given an evaluation and awarded 6 college credits. And we'd refer them to maybe another school, and they may have awarded them 60 college credits. So that's part of where the Collegiate Purple Star and the credit for prior learning, everything kind of got started with our veteran task force that we conducted over about a year period. So I would tell you that, for the colleges, for the soldiers, the programs are sometimes so in depth that sometimes the soldiers or the airmen will not even end up applying for their benefits and paying out of pocket. So it's critical that we have a strong working relationship with all of our schools, with our service members, and those service members know the support mechanisms that are available on campus. Some schools do outstanding jobs. Some schools don't have a very robust program and aren't funded very well. And like such as Kathy, Dr. Herbert, she's kind of a one-person operation, and she does not have the assets that a lot of schools are afforded to them with such as some of the bigger universities. So strongly encourage you, if you have an opportunity, to reach out. We'll be happy to set up a call or a face-to-face meeting, and we'll spend whatever time we need to help get you up to speed. Lots of changes with benefits even into this fiscal year, and we're trying to get that information out as quick as we can. So the three basic programs I'm going to touch on this morning is federal tuition assistance, the state TA program, and some of the GI Bill programs. So starting off with federal tuition assistance, most people know it's referred to as FTA. That program pays up to $250 per semester hour, or a maximum of 16 semester hours per fiscal year, and the cap is $4,000. It does pay through the master's level. It does not allow for like degrees. We run into that a lot. And of course, everyone on this call knows $4,000 doesn't get you very far when you're a full-time student. So that's where the state TA program. I'm sorry? Okay, hot mic. So that's for the National Guard supplement.
Steve, you're on mute.
Okay, I don't know how that happened, but Steve, do you know what the last thing I was talking about? Steve, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. And you were just starting to talk about that grant. It was right after you said hot mic.
Okay, great. Not sure what happened. I had my hands on my lap. So the National Guard Supplemental Grant, which is a fantastic program. I would tell you that Indiana has a more robust state TA program than a lot of the other states. So super excited about what we offer our guardsmen. And one of the things that is super important, which a lot of soldiers typically find out after the fact, is that they do have to apply to FTA first in order to be awarded the supplemental grant. That supplemental grant will pay up to 100% of up to a bachelor's degree level. It will also pay towards a master's degree based on the undergraduate tuition rate charged by the school they are attending. I'll probably are also worth mentioning on this call, because there is a pretty significant gap between master's level tuition rates and undergraduate rates. Some of the schools have already started discounting their master's program to help. Some of the public and private colleges in Indiana have already started discounting master's level programs to close that gap, when we shared that with Kathy as well yesterday. Lastly, last year, the state passed a bill that allows private colleges to participate with the National Guard Supplemental Grant. And if you have not heard, that would pay a flat rate of $5,000 per year or $25 per semester. And that would be added to the 4K FTA rate. So if someone's attending a private college in Indiana, they could receive up to $9,000 in those two benefits towards their tuition. Lastly, I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. There are 3 GI Bill programs that potentially could be available depending upon the soldier and what they're eligible for. I'm going to focus on the Montgomery GI Bill, Chapter 1606. Most soldiers, once they've completed their initial training, so that basic training and advanced individual training, and have enlisted for 6 years, they would be eligible to receive a monthly stipend. That rate went up October to $481. However, that stipend is not designated for tuition. It can be used for any expenses they occur when they're going. I guess it can be used for beer too, while they're going to college. Additionally, if they are eligible for the GI Bill kicker, they could receive an additional $350 monthly combined with that $481. That's a check that's actually paid to the soldier, so it goes to their bank account, and that is tax-free. So that's combined up to $800 plus in additional expenses that service member would have. The post 9/11, which unfortunately can be can be very confusing, because soldiers, when they go through training at those active duty installations, those drill sergeants are active duty drill sergeants. So 9 times out of 10, they only talk about the post 9/11 GI Bill, and they push those soldiers to take advantage, and they basically tell those soldiers that they are eligible for the post 9/11, which is not the case. As most of you would probably know on the call, you have to meet standards and have qualifying time of at least 90 days to that meet that first gate in order to qualify for the post 9/11. So if they have that 90 days of qualifying time, they would be able to use 60% of that benefit, which would be 60% of tuition, 60% of book fees, and 60% of housing allowance with dependent rate based on the zip code of that school. So there is a huge benefit by using the post 9/11. However, some soldiers use that. They don't need the housing allowance, and we typically recommend they don't use that benefit, since their FTA and the National Guard supplemental grant would pay up to 100% of their tuition. So those are the 3 main benefits. We have tons and tons of other programs. Service members can also use $4,000 towards credentials or certifications that can help with their degree program, or help them, qualify for higher paying jobs. We've got tons of other tools that we use that we share with soldiers. But typically, what we try to do with every service member, particularly the newer service members, is we try to set up a one-on-one consultation, either over the phone or in person, and really kind of get in the weeds with them and ask them all the important questions about what their goals are. Do they want to take classes online? Do they want to, are they a face-to-face type person? And we really get to know them and try to help steer them in the right direction. And also we let them know who their college representative is, so they know they have a resource on their campus as well. That kind of basically concludes the 3 main benefits. And I hope that.
Thanks. That was.
Yeah, no, that's no problem. I'm going to finish up with them. Actually, I'll check on one last thing, and then I'm going to go to lunch.
Okay.
If everyone could please mute your mics. Thank you.
And just before we turn it over, Steve, for any questions, I got to tell you, this is, I served 26 years in active duty Army, spent 20 years in the civilian private sector. I was about to retire, and I had an opportunity somebody shared this opportunity to serve in this position. And I got to tell you, this is the most gratifying job I've had, as an adult, to be able to give back and help these service members achieve their goals, particularly at the higher education level. It's a fantastic opportunity for someone to come in and serve and get so much out of the time, whatever the time they serve. And our saying here is, don't leave anything on the table. So regardless how long you serve, make sure you're taking advantage of every benefit that you can. So I look forward to working with those colleges that we haven't connected with, particularly on the private side. And then I will turn it over to Steve.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Steve on the Indiana National Guard, or anything he talked about, or maybe some things that he hasn't mentioned that he can, while he's a captive audience? Feel free to unmute yourself, or you can type something in the chat. Looks like
Yes,
you did a great job.
I
Oh,
do
there you
have
go.
I do have one question, and you may have said this, and I got multiple people coming in and out of my office. If a soldier has exhausted all their Montgomery GI Bill for whatever reason, um, did you say there was still other options that they could use outside of the Montgomery GI Bill to assist them with higher education, with access or funds to higher education?
So one of the common things we run into is soldiers typically coming back from basic and AIT and only applying to use their GI Bill benefits, not knowing that they have state TA and federal TA. So yes, the soldier can use federal tuition assistance up to the master's level. And the National Guard supplemental grant, they have 6 years of benefits they can use towards tuition. So if they have no GI Bill benefits, they can still receive up to 100% of their tuition without using, even though they exhausted their GI Bill benefits.
Okay, thank you so much.
You bet.
We had a question in the chat, but it also looks like it might have been already answered by one of our other audience members. So thank you. Any other questions for Steve? I know when I first got here, he was actually one of my first stops as I was trying to learn the landscape. So I appreciate the time that he spent with me going over the things that the Guard does and how they support military affiliated students. Just know that the Guard is a great partner. So I encourage every institution, if you haven't already had a relationship with Steve and his staff, please reach out and develop that. If you're new to the CPSI and building military affiliated culture on your campus, this would be a great place to start. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cindy from Ivy Tech.
Thank you, Steve. And hello, everyone. It's so nice to be here today. As Steve mentioned, my name is Cindy Randolph, and I am the Assistant Vice President for Career Coaching at Ivy Tech Community College Systems Office. And my distinct honor really is to walk alongside and support all of our career coaches located at each of our 19 campuses. And so with that, I'm going to share a slide deck today. So if you can give me a few moments here, I'll get it pulled up. And Steve, if you can just let me know if you all can see my slides.
Not right now.
Okay.
Technology is a wonderful thing.
Yes, and I'm off site today, so my apologies. Give me one more chance here. See if we can get that.
There we go.
All right. All right. So Steve and I met earlier just to discuss what we are doing at Ivy Tech, and it really is about serving all students. And so here is the model of career coaching. So it's our what, right? And it really is focused on building student relationships. We want to use those relationships, though, to help our learners achieve the goals and reasons for coming to Ivy Tech. And so how do we do that? Well, we're an optional service to students. However, we're very intentional. And so we do reach out to students at the beginning of the year or semester, and we invite them to connect with us. And why? Of course, our why, right? I think this would be the same for any college, any department at a college, but we really want to support our students and walk alongside them during their journey so that they can not only, retain, right, from semester to semester or term to term, but also graduate, but then more importantly, then achieve those career goals that they've set and, identified.
Cindy, you're on mute.
There you go.
Okay, like Steve, my hands were down, so I'm not quite sure what's going on today. So we must have some gremlins. But anyway, so again, that first piece is really about building that relationship, and it's about a trust relationship that's transparent. Why do we want to meet? How can we help you? This can be a private space, right? Making sure that the student feels very comfortable. That next piece there in assessing, what we're doing there is we're identifying what might be either a red flag or an opportunity for a student that would keep them either from moving forward or not. Assessing, oftentimes we think about a test, right? But this is more about understanding where's the student at? We call it meeting the student where they're at and what's important. The next piece is advancing, right? And there we're asking the student after we've assessed how would you prioritize the things that you've mentioned today? Here's what I heard. What would be a priority for you? And then we build that motivation by asking them, what's a good next step that you feel like you can take? And when we talk about strategizing with them, we're doing that same thing, but we're also asking them, how soon do you believe that you could complete whatever it is that you've prioritized? And so you heard me mention assessing, and this is just another, really a graphic for you to see. We're focused on 8 areas, and these 8 areas, done by research from Inside Track, who is our partner, of 2.6 million students, have said these are the areas that will keep them from graduating. And so again, what we're doing in career coaching is we're assessing the student, what's important to you, or what's an opportunity or a red flag, and we're listening for those in coaching. And when we hear a student repeat something over and over, that starts to become a signal to a coach. You'll see that career is listed here as a focus area, but what we know is that a student cannot focus in on a career if in fact they're in financial trouble or there's a concern. And so what we're doing, we're not the subject matter expert in all of these areas, but we do have the resources and we redirect them then to someone who can support them. Oops. And so sorry here, guys. There we go. And so then once though a student has said, you know what, yes, career now is my priority, which we encourage it very, very early on. And you can see over to the left-hand side of the slide, we're encouraging students during the enrollment process to work with a career coach so that they can walk alongside and really mirror career with their academic journey. What we've developed at Ivy Tech is a career development portfolio. And so should each one of these be completed by a student? It depends on where the student is at, right? We also have an adult population, and so perhaps they're already well versed in resume development. Maybe that's not a need or necessary for them. But here are the areas. So we encourage, again, meet with that career coach often. We also encourage that they meet with employers to network, of course, and learn from employers about what's important in their industry or within their walls. Obviously, you do need an up-to-date resume. And what does that look like when we think about employer applicant tracking systems? So we're preparing them to pass those applicant tracking systems as well. Having that elevator pitch ready for whenever you might meet that employer. You know, it could be alongside the street. You may be at a luncheon, right? So that famous question about, tell me about yourself, but they're equipped and ready to share. Also practice interviewing, developing that professional networking profile, such as LinkedIn, building employability skills. Our students often are not aware of what this means and what those skills are. And at Ivy Tech, we follow the National Association of Colleges and Employers, so NACE, and their career competencies. And then we also encourage them to complete a work and learn experience, as we know how valuable those are, not only for being able to explore, but also to apply, and then also really to exercise and further develop employability skills. So that is all that I have in terms of what we're doing at Ivy Tech and our model, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Cindy?
So one thing, Steve, I would also add to this as well, is we have folks at our campuses that do work directly with our veteran students. And so we often in CareerLink will partner with them to help support those students even more intentionally.
Well, I appreciate you talking about the career aspect. For those of you familiar with the CPSI standards, when you get to category 8 and the end, there are several standards about kind of what happens to them after they leave the institution. So it was important to have someone with Cindy's knowledge to kind of talk about, hey, here are some ways to help meet those standards and work with those military affiliated students to help them kind of on their career journey after they leave you. Does anybody have any questions for Cindy? And if not, I'll just kind of generically open it up. Hey, did anybody think of any other questions for Don or Steve as well? And if anybody has any final thoughts. I do appreciate everybody taking time today. We've got a tremendous amount of people who've participated today and have attended. So I thank all of you for taking time out of your day. I do especially thank Dawn, Cindy, and Steve for their time and what they brought to the table. And I want to remind everyone that our final CPSI Lunch and Learn will be on December the 11th. And we will be doing kind of the CPSI application process. We're going to talk a little bit about getting prepared for the awards that we're going to start evaluating come the first of the year. So exciting times. It's been a lot of good information over the last 6 months. But if there is nothing, I appreciate everybody's time. You guys have a wonderful rest of the day. And we will see you on December the 11th. Take care.